Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Aegis of Earth, Protonovus Assault. Made by Acquire, who happened to be one of my favorite devs recently because they made Shinobita 2 and Shinobita 2 was awesome. They also made Alchemist Trip 2, which wasn't that awesome, but... Nevertheless, let's just hop into the game right away. I'm on episode 5A and I've been playing for about 3 hours, and while I would usually give an RPG more time than this isn't really an RPG in the most traditional of senses, so I'm not too against hopping in at this point because my first impressions are pretty much solidified.
Hello, Commander. How are you today? Now, before we get back to work, I'd like to take the opportunity to quickly go over the current state of affairs. This is the crew's current status.
Yeah, the default audio balancing is a little bit off, but it's not that big of a deal, and there are adjustable audio sliders. So here we can see we've got our capital, our crew, and our objectives to get to the next chapter down the bottom there. So we've recently just unlocked the second city that we could go to, and I'm going to go to that city, and I'm going to try and bring it up a couple of levels, I guess the word is.
The condition of all our operators is as shown. Please take a look at the data carefully. And I would advise checking out the general state of the city as well. Now let's knuckle down and get back to business.
So the game's English dub isn't actually that bad, honestly. The problem with it is that there's no Japanese dub.
Oh, what great weather for city development work.
So you can't use the Japanese voice acting, which is a little disappointing. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time looking around in the menus, so we're just going to hop straight into a mission. And to do that, we go straight to the map, and we select the city that we're currently in, and it'll give us a couple of missions to do. Unfortunately, I don't think we're in a good enough position to do the level 7 mission right now, so I think we'll do the level 3 mission. Then I'll pop back to my other city, which is a lot more developed, and we'll give that a go. Nevertheless, let's do this.
City switching to battle configuration.
I actually really like this because see how you can see all the individual buildings moving and setting up and getting ready, and all the little individual animations and little details that there are on the ground and in the buildings and stuff. It's a really well detailed game. It looks really nice. But anyway, here we go. This is the first strike on this entire city. So here's how this game works. You have a series of rings around the outside of your command center, and you can move these rings at your will. So for example, I can move these to about here. Enemies will attack you from every which way, so you have to be very precise about where you put all your stuff, because there are benefits to putting multiple units next to each other. See, I put those 3 green buildings together? That means they've turned into one big Gatling gun building, which means they can do a ton of bonus damage. I better put these over here before I get truly penetrated. Wonderful choice of words on my part there. But as you can see, attacks will come from multiple directions, and you have to rearrange your buildings accordingly to make sure that you don't get your... I really need to stop doing that. To make sure you don't get your ass handed to you. You also have a 4th ring around the outside. The 4th ring can only do things along the lines of temporary stuff. So it's got a bunch of special stuff all its own. Very interesting. So, on the bottom right, you can see the individual level of your mega weapon, and they call it a USW in this game, but mega weapon is just good enough to demonstrate what exactly it is. You've got a mega weapon. You also have a... what's the word I'm looking for? You also have the level that tells you how much HP you've got. On the bottom left, you've got the bloody element that this game mainly works on. That's that element down the bottom there. And if there's too much of that, if it goes up to over 800, a boss is likely to appear. So it'll happen at the end of any particular mission. So what you need to do is keep your wits about you and make sure you're ready for a boss fight when that meter gets too high. Also of note is the other counter down there, which will tell you how many... I can't remember what it's called, Ultralight or something like that. I always forget. But basically, they're your resources in this game. They tell you how much... It tells you how much stuff you've got to work with, to build stuff with. And you've also got just a general progress meter of how the game is coming along. So, this is how this entire section works. If the enemies penetrate your defenses and start destroying things, well, obviously they can destroy things. But there's also the unfortunate ability for the enemies to actually attack your command center. And if you run out of health on your command center, that's it. Game over. But I'm not actually having that much trouble at the moment. I don't think I've come close to failing a single mission. There was a fight with a boss I was having a little trouble with, but yeah, it's not particularly hard, not at least at the start. It's been 3 hours, and I still feel like I'm halfway through the tutorial, which is a little strange, honestly. I was hoping that the game would get up to speed a little faster. Sure, they give you a lot to do, but the game doesn't move along at something I would particularly call a fast pace. Sure, it does go places, it's just a bit slow in getting there. We're at 72%, so we won't be out here much longer. The battles are pretty short. It's not that big of a deal, honestly. They're actually pretty enjoyable, considering the speed that they're at. And you do have to be constantly on the lookout for more enemies attacking from different directions, and some weapons are more effective against enemies than others, so keeping your town on a swivel, which is a bit of a weird situation. Or a bit of a weird saying, I should say. Keeping your town on a swivel is the best way to go about things. See, I've got 3 attacking from 3 different directions here, which isn't fantastic, so I'm going to have to wait for them to stop attacking, then immediately reorient this to make sure I don't get hit from the other side, but no, it's safe. We're almost done.
Enemy swarm destroyed.
Strike progress 100%.
Yay, we won.
Alright, strike complete.
After the mission, we are given a strike report, which will tell us how much XP we've earned, how much resources we've got.
Here are our strike results.
So you get more XP if you defeat enemies using the ultimate strike weapon or
That's all the data right there.
bigger
Send
buildings.
it off to R&D for analysis. Next up is how our latest strike results have affected the city's happiness level.
So your city also has happiness. This can be affected with certain events on the map, which I'll show off.
That's great.
And you can also, obviously, if you win, you get happiness. If you take damage or if you lose people, you'll lose happiness.
Thanks to the
And you'll get more citizens, and that's how you level up your city and get more upgrades for it.
These are the crystals we managed to
Altonite, that's it.
last strike. Next is the report on operator performance. Make sure you keep a close eye on focus and energy levels too. Which operator do you feel contributes?
So I don't know what this energy level stuff has to do with the main game. I imagine it's because I haven't been introduced to everyone in the group yet, and I'd have to be swapping them out from time to time. It's just a little bit strange though.
That's it for
But
the
yeah,
report.
this is battle number 23, so
All done.
yep.
So,
All your main attack units on the inner 3 rings get repaired at the end of every battle. And the ones on the outside don't, so you have to replace them if you want to keep them at full strength.
arrived near the city commander. There's a whole bunch of people who want to
But anyway, the city resets. And now we come into the construction phase, or the planning phase, or whatever the bloody hell you want to call it.
Okay, let's get cracking, shall we?
So every time you come back to this area, you'll get money, and you can also turn the gems that you pick up in the middle of the match to Illuminite. And Illuminite is used for fortifying buildings, so it's worth keeping a good stock of it around. It also costs Illuminite to build things on the outer ring.
There's a dandelion and
We can also accept
the dandelion is
new citizens.
want any of our
I just love this little cutscene because it just... I don't know why I like all the detail that they have here, but it just looks really nice for some reason. It just really appeals to me. It's an interesting little world.
Dandelion successfully docked, sir.
And since we level up,
Yeah. More citizens I have to attack, the more I get fired up about doing my job.
kind of reminds me of Yosuke, just slightly. It might be the same voice actor, can't tell you for sure. But anyway, you get bonuses for that.
That's all the new residents processed. The dandelion will be departing soon.
So while we're here, what we can do is we can build more units. So they each have their own range, their own attack power, and their own hit points. So obviously, you probably want something that's a little bit more durable on the outer rings, but at the same time, putting them on the outer rings means that they'll have more to turn if you need to get them in place in a specific amount of time. And you've also got all sorts of other strategic benefits for putting stuff in different places. I won't be doing anything here. I'll be going back to my other city. You can also select buildings. You can fortify them to make them stronger, but that costs a fair bit of money and some illuminite. You can modify them using specific counters you get, like down the bottom there. You see that 7? That's it. And you can fortify, modify these places to give them residence, so you can actually increase your population that way. We can also move. We can move structures very easily, so we can just like make them swap positions. You can also demolish them if you don't want them anymore. No real reason to demolish them after you've already put them there, unless they actually get destroyed or something. But yeah. And if we go to a residence, was it a residence or was it the swimming pool? Well, there are some things that you can see. We can fortify this for more power, and we can fortify the residence for more capacity. And there are other things you can do, like if you go to a swimming pool, or was it this? No, that's the counter missile. But yeah, it's if you have the right thing built, you can use it as an event and increase your happiness that way in exchange for money, which is pretty neat. So the idea is you just got to try and keep your happiness up and build all your population, which is a neat idea. I'm going to go back to Kimberly, because Kimberly's a little bit more better built, and we can use it as a better demonstration of everything. So as you can see...
So, what do you think we should do about this city? Commander, happiness levels in the city are really quite high. We're getting a lot of praise from our residents.
So yeah, as you can see, things are quite interesting here. We've got plenty of stuff built up already. I've got shields on the outer wall, but most of them appear to be nearly destroyed. Doesn't really matter though. We've got a good power generator there on the inner ring, and our residence is around here somewhere, and all our inner structures are fortified as well, but you don't even lose the population if those get destroyed, which is quite nice. So if we hit triangle, we can access the menu. Settings...
Would you like to make some changes to the way things work around
Settings are about what you'd expect. I'd recommend turning down the music just because it tends to get in the way of the voice acting. You can also turn off dialogue for the bigger and the smaller scenes. So, yeah, you can turn off, like, the little voice clips. The dub in this game isn't entirely complete. It's one of those dubs where it's, like, a single voice line for whole paragraphs for minor in-between cutscenes. But there is full voice acting on the major cutscenes. So, that's the way that works. Unfortunately, there's no Japanese dub, as you can see here. And you can change the difficulty if you want, which is quite nice. You got items that you get after successful promotions and missions and stuff, and they can do specific things for you. So as you can see, you can actually use these mid-fight as well, which is quite interesting, but most of the time you probably want to just spend these, you know, as idea like before the boss or something. And once you've finished all your objectives down at the bottom there, you move on to the next chapter, and that's just basically been how it's been for 3 hours. You can come here to check out all your units, by the way, all the different things you can build. You can check out your enemies, your tips, and even the old cutscenes. Research and development works about the same way you'd expect it to. Spend the resources, you get the blueprints.
I've completed the blueprint of a temporary unit. It's very nice, no doubt about it. You can only build temporary units in Zone 4, of course. Don't forget.
It's neat. And of course, we can come here to swap out our team members. And they've each got their own skills as well.
I love being in love and going out to bars. Yes, sir, right away.
So it's actually kind of nice because they've all got their own skills. So when you unlock everybody that's on the team and all that, you can use their skills to good effect. So if I just remember how to skill. Right, so as you can see, this girl sometimes gets 50% of ARP energy back for firing weapons, and she can also get 25% more capital sometimes. So it's kind of neat to have all these different effects, and I imagine eventually you'll be able to like transfer all your squad members out, and then you'll be able to like, you'll have a full city, because some of these areas here, as you can see, can't be built on. So I imagine that at some point you'll eventually unlock a city that has almost every part of this whole thing unlocked. The other city has it so that the majority of like your second ring is only on one side and all that. So I imagine that they'd eventually do something like that in order to make things more interesting. But it is fairly slow, which is kind of a problem because it's been 3 hours, and as I said, I already feel like I've been in the tutorial. I've been in the tutorial all this time, so it's a little bit, what's the word, just slow. But at the same time, it's actually pretty enjoyable. Keeping up with all the... Trying to keep up with all the enemies that are showing up and all that is interesting. So this mission actually lets us go straight onto a boss. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to prepare my... I'm actually going to try and prepare for the boss attack because I was hoping to find a way to show you guys a boss and now I'll be able to. So let's build an immobilizer. I don't have the power to make another immobilizer and I'm probably going to lose this fight, which will be interesting, but at the same time, let's do it, because why the hell not, right? It's a video. It's not like you're going to blame me for being shit. I actually really like this game, admittedly. It's really slow, and it takes a while to get going, but that's pretty much the only problem I got with it. As a tower defense game, it's a really interesting concept, having all these different rings and stuff. And I like the way it's presented. The dub isn't that bad. The writing's pretty good, other than it being a bit... Well, it's that sort of not so much childish, as easygoing Japanese style localization going for it. It's not bad, not by any means. It's just a bit lighthearted. And I actually kind of like the universe, honestly. Post-disaster Earth, absolutely covered with evil monsters. And just, you have to build cities on these fucking rings. It's an interesting concept to me personally, and I quite like it. You can see that red ring around the outside. That actually determines your attack range. So, depending on the way I've got this whole city set up, I can literally attack any direction without missing something. And it's quite interesting, but again, some weapons just aren't very effective on certain monsters. Like those little guys that come in, chain guns tear them apart, cannons are alright, but if I put a missile launcher up against them, they won't be touched. So, keeping all your weapons on a good swivel is the best way to succeed in this game. And also knowing good strategies as well, because see how I've made like 3 complete guns here? Although I kind of assumed that the game would be oh god. Although I kind of assumed the game would be kind of harder than this. Just at first. It's still kind of grown on me. The game's just general combat style is just quite entertaining to me, honestly. I really enjoy just trying to keep on track with everything that goes on. For a game that's only controls are literally using the D-pad to determine where your towers are placed, it's surprisingly exciting. The super weapon is charged up about halfway, which is pretty interesting. Thank you, girl. They tend to talk a lot through battles, and sometimes they give you interesting info, but they tend to praise you a lot. And sometimes it gets in the way of important information, which isn't too pleasant, but at the same time, I'm kind of willing to forgive it, mainly because you can turn the voice acting off thanks to the individual sliders, but yeah. It's just fun to play, honestly. Like, I'm not that big of a fan of tower defense, but this is enough of a unique spin on the genre to make it interesting. And they're actually charging a budget price for this. It's $29.99. And that's the full price of the game. It's not like a discount or anything, which I quite like. It's certainly more interesting than I was expecting it to be. And I mean, Acquire are really good at making niche games that'll have cult followings. Like Shinobi 2, clunky as fuck, but it actually turned out really good once you got into it. Like Akiba's Trip, well, I wasn't that big of a fan of it. I'm sure other people actually did enjoy it a lot. And for a game that did like a visiting Japan sort of vibe to it, it was actually really interesting too. And now we've got Aegis of Earth, which is another interesting concept with actually pretty decent execution about it, and I quite like it. It's not something I'd recommend to everyone, but if you like the concept, well, it's fairly cheap for a new release game, and hell, who knows, you might even be able to find it cheaper in at least the United States if you go deal shopping. Sorry for the plane that's going over, but I can't control the bloody airlines, can I? It's a very interesting game, nonetheless, and I really do enjoy playing it. Wait until you see the big boss monsters. Just lost a defense panel there. That won't be pleasant. Let's get a big cannon on that. There we go. Here comes the boss.
More fun around the corner, huh?
I'm detecting a strong space-time anomaly.
There he is.
My heart's pounding away like
It's a gigantic spiked testicle, and we're gonna blow it out of the sky. If we can. So, if I press square, it activates the USW. Now, if I can just get it around to the right spot, I can fire. Yes! Look at that damage! And don't worry, this certainly does get more interesting. I better get out of this. I need to find the boss. Camera's a little hard to deal with in this game, but it's not that big of a deal. And we get it angled right. See, he actually moves around, so now's the time to get this immobilizer working. Oh, I actually beat him. Yeah, when you get the USW, it gets a little bit easier to beat those guys, but the first fight you have with them is really tense, so it's actually quite enjoyable. So yeah, we get the request report, and considering that was a special request, we get special resources for it. More than your usual mission. So, yeah, we do get lots of extra stuff here. My happiness stays at 100% because I'm just that good. We get plenty of civilians coming in, we get plenty of resources, everybody levels up. I don't think level up actually does anything. I think it's just something to do, but not that big of a deal. It's not that important.
Oh, and Admiral Newman is on the line.
Hello, Newman here. Good work in your latest strike. I appreciate all your efforts in getting data for us. Not that I ever doubted you. So, as promised, sent you a bonus. I assume it has already arrived. It should prove very useful for the continued development and defense of your city. So, back to your duties.
I'll put our bonuses into this.
Alright, so yeah.
Hey, city
The whole game also has this sort of atmosphere going about it where you have to end up
dandelions arrived near the
using all your cities to build resources to build up new cities. And I imagine once you start unlocking like 3 or 4 cities and you go between all of them, trying to keep all their happiness up and using their resources to bring each other up, it's a very interesting concept, and I really do like it. I'll probably be keeping it around for a while because it's actually quite small. It's like 700 meg too, so it's a small game, it's at a fairly budget price, and it's actually a really interesting concept that I'm liking a lot. So I have no argument with Aegis of Earth, and hell, I'll see if I can try and play it, but considering I've got Trillion God of Destruction to go through, I'm gonna have a bit of a tough time doing that. Nevertheless, though, it's still plenty of fun, and I mean, while it's not exactly the best game in the world, it's an acquired game, obviously, it's never gonna be the best game in the world, but it's a surprisingly cool concept, and I really enjoy it, and we're apparently getting a bunch of people who are running away from social justice warriors. Okay, that was a bad joke even for me, I'm sorry.
Come join the party. You're safe in here. We have got you covered.
Just all the little details just make me like it even more.
Okay.
Do I get anything else? Yeah, I get to get more defense on this city. There'll be more city levels.
With the population,
Unfortunately, I can't build
some more.
Unfortunately, I can't build more power plants or anything like that, so my progress here is kind of limited. But I imagine eventually I'll be able to do that. And there are multiple cities you can unlock, including Washington, D.C. So that's actually pretty neat.
Here are all the
So there's plenty to do. It does take a while to get going, but it's an interesting concept nonetheless, and I quite like it. So that was just a quick look at Aegis of Earth. This has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.